we do blockchain stuff. And we also organize this blockchain developers meetup. This is our guest speaker today, Tsankov, which is here on behalf of the P3C project, and he will introduce himself.
So hi everybody, my name is Tsankov. I'm so happy to actually be here and be able to speak to the Bulgarian blockchain community. I've been in the cryptocurrency space since 2012, playing around with Bitcoin, and then eventually switching to Ethereum in 2015 because I was fascinated with the possibilities with it. And every step along the way, I found that programmers in Eastern Europe, specifically Bulgaria, are some of the best in the world. So for me, it's a big honor to be able to speak here and speak to you guys and hopefully become a part of the community. I wish that my Bulgarian was good enough to be able to deliver this lecture in Bulgarian, but because of sort of the economics and philosophy that I'm going to be going through, I don't think that's the case. So I'm preferring to stick to my native tongue, which is English. Hopefully that can get along the ideas a little bit better. So just to give you guys a little bit overview of myself, as I said, I've been working in blockchain for a while. I've basically done everything in the cryptocurrency space. My most recent job has been working at one of the world's biggest Bitcoin USD exchanges. So I have a lot of experience working on the exchange side and kind of understanding how the market for Bitcoin works and sort of how things work on the exchange level and custody level. I'm based in New York City. Right now I have a consultancy, so I work with projects on a sort of project or hourly basis, basically providing them consulting, providing them services based on my experience. But what I'm going to present to you today, P3C, is an entirely open source project that does not have a company behind it. It doesn't have any central figures. It's completely decentralized. And the idea is that it's striving to become a protocol that's open for all, rather than regulated to one specific company. So the name P3C, it stands for Planetary Prosperity Project. And the idea is to provide prosperity to everybody on the planet. And that's a big goal. So as we go through this talk, just keep in mind that this is very new stuff, very sort of fresh, but it's only possible on the blockchain, and it's only been around for a few months, so it's still very young and continually evolving. So what do we define as prosperity? What P3C is attempting to optimize in the form of prosperity is three important things. So first of all, it's an income source. So if you have prosperity, you have a continuous source of income that is coming to you over time. Second of all, it's a store of value. So when you put money into it, you are fairly sure or confident that that is going to stay valuable over time, and it's not going to change based on external circumstances. And then the third factor is sort of this big idea of insurance, which is if something goes wrong, you know that you'll be able to liquidate your position and get something out of it without having to worry about justifying yourself to do that. And this sort of idea of prosperity right now is something that we really are sort of redefining as cryptocurrencies are coming into place. A lot of these individual things are things that Bitcoin is striving to do, but I believe that there's some fundamental limitations to what Bitcoin is capable of. So, and I'm going to be going into those in this talk. So I want you guys to all imagine for a second a big shared pot of money, a pension fund. And that pension fund is open to all nationalities, so everybody can put into it. And it has no age restriction, which means you can take out of it at any time. Now that's something that we're really not used to thinking about. When we think about pensions and Social Security, we think about it, it's tied to a specific group of people, it's tied to a race, a nationality, a nation, and it has an age restriction. You put money in and you can't take your money out until you're 65, for example, or until you're 70. And that's sort of democratically controlled or controlled by some sort of government. And I want you guys to think for a second, imagine somebody that didn't have those restrictions. What would that look like? It's probably very difficult to think of. So really that idea right there of the shared pot of money is what we're trying to build with P3C. So I want to give you some insight into the long-term vision. This is really the big sort of economic philosophy behind it. So before we can kind of go into that, I want to talk about the evolution of hard and soft money. So this is how money has evolved in the past thousands of years. So, and this is sort of an idea that's gaining traction in the Bitcoin community specifically. If any of you guys have read the book, The Bitcoin Standard by Safety Amos, he talks a lot about this. But basically he says that money has gone through 3 stages. So the first stage was when we had what's called local money. And the idea with local money is that this is some money or value storage that was only useful within a specific locality of where you were. So if you were in a tribe, you would find these beads or carved stones or something useful. And that was an incredibly powerful form of value transfer because it meant that you as an individual who, let's say, had a specialty in making shoes could be able to give something of value to somebody else who had a different specialty, let's say farming, for example. So it enabled this new form of commerce that was impossible beforehand. Because in a traditional barter system, you would have to maintain the goods that everyone wanted at one time. But by having a medium of exchange that everybody could sort of agree on, that was tremendously useful. The issue, however, with local money was that it was only really useful within your specific local environment. So for example, if I was an individual who was very rich in these sorts of beads, and I tried to travel 500 miles to the west and trade them with a different society or a different culture, they may not value them at all. So it added a specific limit as to what my money was capable of over time. And what Amos is saying was a big step forward was this development of global money, so specifically in the form of gold. And the beauty of gold was that, let's say for example, my tribe lived here and we used gold, for example, as a medium of exchange. We could trade with a tribe that lived thousands of miles away, and we would both find a value in what we were passing between us. And the difference between them, and really what he's saying, the big goal, the big invention was this idea of the money became hard. And now what hard money is something that really can't be inflated. It's tied to a natural process. It can't be counterfeited. It can't be created out of nothing. And it's regulated by something outside of the control of the specific society. Well, when we had these beads and things as the like, they were controlled by individual groups, so they really weren't as hard as, let's say, a brick of gold was. And then gold sort of lasted for a long time. The beauty of gold was that even if, let's say, something like that, the trader every week because he could do it with other tribes. The thing is it became sort of infectious. It became the medium of exchange for the entire world. And it lasted that way for a long time until the 20th century, in which we sort of saw this split back into soft money, which is traditional fiat currency. And the idea with that is that you sort of have governments being able to say that this currency is valuable kind of because we say it is. And really, one area where I diverge is that he makes a value judgment on that. He says that it's bad that that's the case. I don't really think that that's true. I think that it's simply something that is useful to people, and our government sort of match that as a result. Now, the big sort of thing coming out right now is people are saying that Bitcoin is the next hard money. So it's a return back to what gold provided, specifically that it has a cap supply, you can't make more of it on demand, and that it can be universally usable as a currency. And I think that that's fantastic because we get this trait of hardness back, and that you can't sort of counterfeit it out of nothing. And it has this intrinsic value that can be used amongst different groups. And the right way to think about this distinction between soft versus hard is imagine you have a treasure chest that you find on the beach. And you have a choice right now when you open that treasure chest. You can either find in that treasure chest 50 kilograms of gold, or you can find in there a certificate to a bank which entitles you to 50 kilos of gold. Now, most of you guys would choose just to find the gold right there because you aren't necessarily confident that you would be able to claim that from the bank, that it would be there, etc. And that's the property of hardness that we really like. It's something that's right there in front of us and immediately usable. So when you think about things that are hard versus soft, imagine what you would want to find in a treasure chest lying on the ground. So what is it that actually creates this element of hardness? Well, I believe that there are three core things that create elements of hardness. I think that the first thing is it has to be decentralized. So in the case of gold and Bitcoin, it's not tied to one specific entity who is allocating this stuff. With a fiat currency, for example, you have a government or a Federal Reserve that is saying how many of them there are. But with things like Bitcoin or gold, it can come sort of naturally from a variety of different sources. And that's an element of decentralization that people find tremendously useful because it means that that source can't create more of it on demand and then inflate you out of your value. So the second thing is that it is set in stone. It can never be changed. So with gold and Bitcoin specifically, there's sort of this big debate right now about forking and whether or not if you tie back to the original block that's there, is that something that's never been changed? I don't think that it's important for us to get into that debate about hard forks versus soft forks because it's a difficult one. But when I mean can it never be changed, is it possible that somebody can't just take your money out of your account and then just say you have none of it now? So when I say it can never be changed and set in stone, when you have it, it can't just be erased from yours. And that's something that I think that everybody in the cryptocurrency community acknowledges as being something that's tremendously useful and something that you don't have with fiat currencies. Your bank, for example, could decide at any moment to say, oh, well, your account balance is zero. We decided to take your money. And this has happened on occasion in places like Cyprus, for example, in which the government took the balances of certain individuals' bank accounts to pay back debts that the bank had incurred. And really, there's no recourse if that happens. And then the third element is mathematically provable. That means that if you have an individual who is able to examine, let's say, the source code for a cryptocurrency in multiple locations and not be able to connect to it, they can derive exactly how the cryptocurrency will function and be able to mathematically prove that it will operate the way it's supposed to, all remotely, just from the source code. And this is a really important element for creating this idea of hardness, which is super attractive to people. I just posted in the previous slide the evolution of money, but I think that really it's not talked about very much, the evolution of insurance, which is how do we as a society save wealth between ourselves. So this is really interesting. This is a picture of a woman in Senegal who is basically filling the role of an insurance company. What she does is she's a trusted member of the community. People know that she's been around for a while and that she makes really good decisions and she's wise and that she won't run away with people's money. And they give her cash when times are good, so when they're doing well. And then if, for example, you injure yourself or you get hurt, you can go to her and she will then give you money out of that sort of pot. And this is a system that's actually worked for a long time. It's worked really well. But in the same way in the previous slide, how I said that it's localized, which means that like that woman can't, collect insurance for thousands of people all over the world because they can't trust her or they don't really be able to be a good custodian of the funds. We have this sort of next system, which is what I call sort of global insurance. These are the biggest insurance companies out there right now. You can either go to them or is connected with them, and what they do that makes them so profitable is they take the risk, for example, like in life insurance, they take the risk of you dying, And they put it together with lots of other people, and they say that one of those people dying is so low that we can do this sort of ratio of payouts to payments, etc., and they can spread the risk globally. So they can basically fill the role of this woman who's in a single village, they can fill it there. Now, the issue with this is that it's soft, which means that they can erase your balance at any time. They can claim, for example, that they don't have the money because they invested it in the wrong place and they made a bad investment and it disappeared. This is actually what happened with AIG in 2008. They made a lot of investments in bad housing loans in the United States, and they said, oh, well, if we don't get bailed out, then we won't be able to fulfill people's insurance payments. Now imagine that from the perspective of an individual. I've been paying into this company for my whole life with the expectation that if I die, I'd be able to get insurance payments. And now they come to me after I've been paying them saying, sorry, we don't have the money. You need to bail us out. So that's a tremendous issue, and people want to sort of fix this. And I think that these are individual companies, but to a certain extent, it also is like national systems as well. So this is a picture of the seal of the Social Security system of the United States. And the idea with Social Security is that you pay in your whole life, and when you get older or to a specific age, you can start making redemption payments from the system. And many young people in the United States really don't believe that that system is going to stay solvent when they get old. So currently I'm 24. I don't believe that when I hit 65 that this system will have the money for me to be able to do that. And to a certain extent, the same is true. I mean, I bet we could talk about it after. I'm not too familiar with how the Bulgarian pension system works as well, but there is a huge element of risk that you can pay into it your whole life, and then when you need it, it's not there. So the big question that P3C is attempting to solve is, can we make this form of insurance hard? And that's really the big question here. And I believe that the world needs hard insurance. And the reason why is because you can see that there's sort of this discrepancy in aging throughout the planet. So in places like Japan and China, the United States, Western Europe, etc., you have a huge lopsided demographics in which you have many older people who are sort of going to the ends of their lives, and fewer younger people there to take care of them. That's something which is true sort of all over the world. Now, at the same time, you have individuals in places like Latin America, India, Africa, that are sort of beginning their working careers and have very few older people to take care of, because the demographics is much more like an upside down pyramid, or like a regular pyramid as opposed to an upside down one. So my core belief, and the belief of the P3C community, is that we can create a hard insurance system that can allow individuals from around the world to be able to share wealth between themselves and to solve this demographic problem that is facing many different countries. Because these individuals would love a system to be able to put wealth into now and be able to count on it, to be able to collect on it later in their life. And then you have older individuals who are very worried right now that they won't be able to make their retirement and be able to save for retirement. So the question is, can we create a system that allows them to sort of, be a part of one and solve this individual issue of different nations having their own insurance systems that might not work? So just to summarize kind of the big philosophy of P3C is, we need a hard social system for insurance. And basically as a metaphor for that, I want to use the diamond, which is something that's so hard, it's harder than gold, and you know it's going to be there for you. And then we as a planet need a bigger pool of money for everyone to share from, not broken down by individual nations, but as a single individual organism. And as you guys may be sort of thinking, crypto is an amazing tool for that. This is what crypto is for. So the question is, how is this possible? So, got the whole video. So this is P3C, the Planetary Prosperity Project. And kind of with the background I've given you guys, I want you guys to sort of think about that and keep that in the back of your mind when I'm explaining how this project works. The thing that this talk could go is I'll go through the next slides, which is explaining specifically how the program operates, and then I'll get into the actual technicals of it and show you guys on the computer it functioning, because it's live right now, it's working. Designed in such a way that the core contract is done and it can never be changed. So the core of this project is complete and it's ready to start taking in investments. So the mission for P3C is to create a united savings fund for an entire planet that it can improve lives, increase trust, and create prosperity. And what we think is that if there's a system that people have that they can count on to be taken care of in old age, our world will be a lot more of a peaceful place because people won't be worried as much about whether or not they can be taken care of once they get older. So there are three core pillars that we sort of operate on and that sort of guide the project, which is transparency. So we try to be very open with how everything works and who benefits and how. We try to be timeless, which is 200 if possible. 300, and we want to think about that always when we're designing our software. And then we want it to be immutable, which is once people know that their money is in this project, they know that it's safe and that it can't be changed and taken from them. So with those in mind, we've actually launched a 700-line smart contract on Ethereum Classic. And many of you guys, just to give you a little background, most of you guys are familiar with Ethereum, which is the name of a sort of decentralized smart contract protocol created by Vitalik Buterin in 2015. And what happened in 2016 was that there was this huge organization called the DAO, which was the first big smart contract organization. And what happened to the DAO is that it collected hundreds of millions of dollars in Ether, and then it got hacked through a very sort of trivial bug. And the Ethereum community kind of had a choice. They said, oh my God, that some hacker found a vulnerability in a smart contract and now has hundreds of millions of dollars of the community's Ether. What do we do? Well, a lot of community members decided to sort of fork to give that money back to the community. And they said that there was a mistake in the way that the contract was written, that this protocol is so young that we can't risk having all of that money in the hands of the hacker. And I think that there are a lot of really good points to it. But there was also a much smaller sect of the community that said that fundamentally code is law. And what that hacker was able to do in the smart contract was exploit a way that it was written in a way that the author never sort of understood. And that because they were able to do that, it is still fair game and that they should be able to hold on to the Ethereum that they were able to get. And the chain sort of split in two directions. The chain that most people are using now and that most of you guys probably develop on is the Ethereum chain, which gave the money back from the hack. And the chain that P3C is on is known as Ethereum Classic. And the idea with Ethereum Classic is that what you see in the code will always be that way. So if P3C were to get hacked and the funds taken, then that is absolutely how it'll work because that code is there. But that you know that the community can never fork and give those funds for some reason that we didn't decide. So it'll run exactly the code that's written. And that's the reason why we chose to launch on Ethereum Classic. The other reason is that the fees were a lot lower because there are a lot less coins and tokens and projects on ETH Classic that from a user's perspective, they have to pay a lot less in order to use it, which is actually very nice. So what exactly is P3C? Well, P3C is a 700-line smart contract that takes in cryptocurrency and distributes it to other participants. And it's a way to share money in the community. So think of it kind of like the global insurance system that we're talking about. It has no restrictions on who can participate, which means that anyone can send P3C or send Ethereum Classic to the contract and become a participant. And the more participants it has, the stronger this becomes. In the same way that as an insurance pool, the more people that are a part of it, the stronger the insurance pool becomes. Now, the core thing is that when you're buying into P3C, you are getting a token. However, that token is always redeemable for Ethereum Classic. Now, that is different than a traditional ICO model in which you create a token and you rely on a marketplace like Binance or EtherDelta, etc., to provide liquidity to trade Ether for that token. When it comes to P3C, if you hold a P3C token, you are guaranteed by the smart contract to be able to redeem that for Ethereum Classic. Now the question is whether or not that price will be sort of the price that you expect, and that's the level of risk in the project. So the big sort of takeaway from what P3C is, think of it as a big smart contract that handles pushing money between individuals. And now I'm going to get into, and it can never be changed. And now I'm going to get into the 4 rules, because you can actually create this global pension system with literally 4 core rules. So the 4 rules are this. You can buy a token from the contract. And what the contract has it as a price for the token. It says that a token currently costs 0.001 ETC. And when you buy it, 10% of what you spent to purchase that token gets distributed proportionally back to the community. So if I want to put $100 into P3C, 10 of those dollars right off the bat gets distributed to all token holders proportionally. And 90 of those dollars goes to purchasing the actual tokens. Now, every time that you buy a token, the price for the next token goes up by an incremental amount. So what will happen is the more people that are buying tokens, if I'm at the very beginning of P3C and I buy $100 worth of tokens, I can get tens of thousands of tokens. But as P3C gets older over time, that $100 will buy a lot less tokens. And now the reason why that's important is because remember this idea of sharing proportionally, that means that it is better for you to get in earlier since you were able to get a higher proportion. Now, at any time, you can choose to give your token back to the contract, and the contract will give you Ethereum Classic. And that Ethereum Classic will be given at the price that was there, and then it will decrement the price by the same amount that it incremented when you bought it. Now, the reason why this is important is because it always guarantees that there is Ethereum Classic in the contract for your token. However, the price that you bought the token at is not guaranteed to be the same price that you get when you sell it. And then when you sell, 10% of what you spent, what you would be getting back, gets distributed to the community proportionally. So the big idea for this is that it's a game that incentivizes longer participation. So the longer that you are able to hold on to it, the more dividends you are able to get by people entering and leaving the system. Now this is pretty crazy because the core idea of P3C is that with these 4 rules, you can literally create an international pension program that is censorship resistant, which means that nobody can ever get kicked off of it. It is no age restriction because you can buy tokens at any time in your life and you can sell tokens at any time of your life. But mathematically, if you buy them super quickly and then sell them super quickly, you're going to be paying this 10% fee multiple times, so it's not in your best interest to do so. But at the same time, you have the choice, which is something that you currently do not have with most pension systems. It's also big because it's immutable. Because it's a blockchain application, you know that your balance can never be changed. And you also know that it's accessible no matter what happens to your government, no matter what happens to the currency that it's done in, etc. It is always redeemable for anything that's on the blockchain. And it's global, which means that there's no restrictions on who can join or where they have to be. So that's sort of the big idea. And the notion of it is that it's sort of like an hourglass, in which basically people get in on the early part and they put the money in, and then over time, as they get older in their lives, they sell their tokens to be able to cover their retirement, And that generates sort of sand that goes down in the form of dividends to the newer people that join. And they pay that 10% fee. And it reduces the price, which makes it easier for newer people to get it. Over time, the price will go up sort of slowly by 1 or 2%. But we think that if you model this out over, let's say, a 50 or 100-year period with individuals treating it like a pension program, it will have sort of this slow growth, which can be sort of revolutionary in our opinion. And the question is, how do you bootstrap a prosperity system? So like, if we were to create a new pension program right now, how do you get people to use that pension program? Well, we're using the same incentives that Bitcoin uses. So with Bitcoin, the way that it works is that in the first year of Bitcoin's existence, they allocated almost half of the Bitcoin. So the first 10 million was allocated in the first year and a half. And Bitcoin sort of has this issuance schedule, which kind of looks like this type of curve, which is it goes up super high at the beginning, and we're currently like right here in this area, and then there are these effects called halvenings, in which they reduce the issuance by a little bit, and then eventually it converges on this number of 21 million. At around the year 2140, no new Bitcoin will be issued. Now, P3C uses something similar, which is when the program first launched, you were able to buy with one Ethereum Classic lots of tokens. But remember, every individual token that gets purchased increases the price of the next one. So it basically shot up at the beginning, but then it sort of slowed out like this. And the idea is that over time, it'll sort of become this slower curve, almost like Bitcoin's right here, except it'll never have this hard limit that Bitcoin has. And it provides an incentive because it means that you can get in earlier and get in a bigger stake by buying in right now and versus waiting for longer. And that's important because you need to incentivize people to use the program. And if you just said that everybody can get the same deal, whether they start now or start later, no one will ever hop on board. There needs to be an incentive. Okay, so that's sort of the big idea behind P3C. On its own, we don't believe that that'll be able to work. We don't think that we can convince the entire world to be able to hop on board this program right now because it's simply too crazy, it's too radical. There's not enough reason for people to do it. So we need to provide even more of an incentive. So what we're working on right now is this sort of idea for a DApp cooperative in which basically community members can choose. They can say, for example, I have this new decentralized application, a new virtual casino, for example. I want to get users for that application. What I can do is I can promise to give 1% of the profits that house makes to P3C. You can do the same for collectibles. You can do the same for advertising or an exchange. And the idea is that the P3C community is currently over 250 members. So there's 250 people in it that are all economically incentivized to help P3C applications succeed. So if you're an application like a casino and you want to get people using your casino, well, how do you do it? You got to get people in the door. Well, if you give a little to P3C, then the P3C people will be like, oh, hey, I want to gamble right now. Do I want to use a gambling game which gives me nothing? Or do I want to use the casino which gives 1% back to P3C members? The same could be true for digital collectibles. Do I want to use the CryptoKitties game that gives me nothing? Or do I want to use the one that gives back sort of 1% to the community as a whole? And I think that this could be especially true when it comes to exchanges, because with an exchange, the way that it works is they're always trying to optimize liquidity. So the best exchanges are the ones where it has the most amount of people. Well, how do you build that people? Well, you build it by giving them something in return. And one way that you can give them something in return is by plugging into P3C. Now, the biggest application that I'm currently working on is advertising. So I believe that there is a direct incentives for people to view advertising that is giving them something back. So I view your ad and you give me something. And currently right now, we're working on a way of generating funding for P3C by using this idea of sponsorships. So you can take out a sponsorship slide on the web page, which means that anybody who uses P3C will view your sponsorship right there. And currently right now, we just took it out with the Bitcoin as a sponsor, the open source project, who knows? But it really could be anything. Like you have an ICO, for example, that you want to get the community to pay attention to. Well, how do you get them to pay attention to it? You give them something in return to view the advertisement. And you can do that by using sort of advertising space provided by P3C. And our belief is that as this ad network grows, and as people see benefits of being P3C holders, the value of the advertising space will go up, which will create even more interest in P3C, which will create even more value in the ad, and then it can sort of expand like that. And really we see these sponsorships everywhere. So like in sports, for example, on jerseys, this is a picture of a marathon. They put a little sponsorship on everybody's tag so that anytime you see a picture, you see the sponsorships everywhere. And we've had this sponsorship live for a week. And so far we've raised one Ethereum Classic, which is about $13 for the community. So we're small, we're still starting out, but it's something revolutionary. And I'm going to go into the technology behind the advertising, because the beauty of this ad right here is that this ad was purchased on the blockchain, and the ad itself lives in the blockchain, but the way that it's served to a client's computer is via a traditional web server. So this ad right here can be viewed on your Safari browser without any MetaMask, because we have a node that's pulling data from the blockchain and serving it out. So the idea is that we can create an advertising system that is handles payment on the blockchain, but handles serving that ad via traditional methods. And that's really big, because we don't believe that the blockchain should be used for anything other than payments. It's really just a way to like send money around, and you shouldn't be doing data storage sort of on it. So let's kind of go into the economics of P3C and sort of like how we see it growing. So right now we're like right here, we're at the very, very beginning. And we sort of, the original users of it are basically just going to be like, you know, the people in this room, computer people, people in the crypto space, kind of us. And then we're thinking about it as well, sort of like business people, people that are speculating on it. They see like the value, ooh, this could get big in the future. But like really the big use case that we want to think about is money transfer services. So for example, there are lots of cases, I mean my family is the case, my father's Bulgarian, and the way that we take care of our family members there is we send money back from the United States to Bulgaria. And first of all, that's horrible in terms of the fees that it generates. We have to pay a lot of money to do that. It's kind of ridiculous. An idea that we were sort of thinking about is what happens if we pair sending the money to people, so you send it in crypto, but then you also send 5% of that payment into P3C to sort of plan for their retirement over time. And if you were to get the entire remittance community of the world to think about using this as a savings program, where they're saving for their relatives, and their relatives, for example, your grandmother can choose to liquidate the tokens as necessary. She can choose to withdraw the dividends as she sees fit, all those 10% fees to pay for things. She can use to reinvest them. It gives them sort of agency. Another sort of element that we see as being useful is people that are stateless, migrant workers. So if you're a Mexican farm worker in the United States, you don't have access to things like Social Security or pension plans or security plans. Our idea is that P3C is accessible from a cell phone, and you can put in 50 cents, 25 cents. You put in basically what you can, and you're given a fair deal without having to rely on sort of a government institution to necessarily do that, simply because they're not taken care of by them. And then sort of over time, we really see this as being a way for younger individuals all around the planet to take care of older individuals. And another thing that's interesting from an economics perspective is that Ethereum Classic is capped at 210 million. Really weird. Ethereum doesn't have a cap. Ethereum Classic does have a cap. I don't know how the economics of this is going to affect P3C in the long term. What this means is that there is only a finite amount of P3C that can exist out there, because if you were to put all 210 million ETC into the contract, you couldn't put any more in there. So I'm not sure how it'll affect it, but it'll mean that Ethereum Classic is worth more over time because it's a finite amount of it. So therefore, the value of your assets that you have access to should go up as well. We'll see about that. So here's the important part, and that sort of everybody needs to understand, that there is no promises with P3C. Nothing in economics can ever have a promise. You can never be guaranteed to make money. And that's the problem with a lot of these insurance programs, is that they gave people guarantees. They say, you will have money for your retirement at this age. P3C does not say that. It says, this is the mathematics of how, if people join, your retirement will grow. But at the end of the day, P3C only makes money from people choosing to pay into it or join it. So if you were to join and nobody else were to join after you, it would be like an insurance company of a one, which is not really a good insurance company. So there's no promises there. Now here's kind of our development timeline. This is what we have now. So we launched the Genesis contract, and I'll show you guys the contract in a second. We launched it 2 months ago. Currently we have about 4,500 ETC in there. That's about $60,000. It's the largest app on Ethereum Classic. We have 3 core developers. I'm one of them. Open source contributors. We have a 200-person Discord. So the idea is that if this Discord is open to any applications that are built on top of P3C, if you build an app on top of P3C and you come to our Discord and say, we're giving 1% of the proceeds of this app to P3C, you will get people who will translate it, people who will bug test it, you'll get users, you'll get a lot of individuals, you'll get open source contributors, because they see value in making your app successful in that case. So that's sort of where we are right now, and we have a developer SDK, which is, if you want to pay into P3C, you literally send money to one address, and then it's distributed automatically to the community. So where do we sort of see ourselves in the next 6 months? We basically want to create better applications for developers who are using that. Basically the way to track the stats of P3C, know how it's going up in price, so individuals who are investing in this for their retirement knows how it's working. We want to create a mobile application, so that use case specifically of farm workers, for example, and people that don't have access to pension plans. We want to have an application for them that's literally 2 buttons, and it's just buy P3C, sell P3C, etc. And that's how they control their retirement. Currently our Discord is 200, we want to have 1,000 people. We got a contract audit, so we worked with the Callisto organization, which is the Ethereum Commonwealth. They've given us an okay. They spent about 4 devs working for over a month auditing the contract, the 700-line contract, to say that it's secure, and we've gotten the stamp from them that it's secure, and we believe that it can sort of scale. And then sort of where do we see ourselves in a year? This is sort of big things. Ideally, we want to have translations, so we want to have it in every language if possible. And the big thing is that we really want to have ZK snarks. If you guys are noticing, if you guys know anything about that, because we want to make it in such a way that you do not need to, no one can tell how big your investment is in P3C. Right now, people can see how many tokens you own, but it's absolutely imperative that that's kept anonymous for people, so they don't have to worry about anyone knowing about it. So just in conclusion, what is P3C? Well, P3C is an economic project that is networking dApps on the blockchain. So if you're a dApp developer, P3C is a way for you to get a community of people now that care. We think that over time, this community can grow, and it can grow to planetary scale, which means that any applications that are built on top of it are able to, are sort of incentivized to use it. And I have experience developing a lot of applications on Ethereum. I've worked on applications that are some of the highest volume in the space. And here's the thing about Ethereum, is that you can build a hot dApp one day, and then the next month, the next year, it has no users. So the idea is that if you as an application investor invest in P3C and connect with the P3C community, maybe your application will go down over time because it just won't get as many users, but another members of the community's application will go up. And that means you can share in the upside as a community. So it's sort of, it basically spreads the risk, and it means that you'll be able to, over time, not have to worry as much about having a failure and running out of funds. So this is the overriding philosophy with P3C, which is you pay those who came before you, and then sort of at the end, when you're selling your P3C as you get older, you give to the next generation, which is you pay those fees and you reduce the price for the tokens by liquidating. And that's my talk. So that was the economics and philosophy behind it. Personally, I'm a programmer, so it's fun for me to talk about that stuff, but it's extra fun for me to actually show you guys it working, and it's currently live right now. So if we have about 15 minutes, I'll show you guys the actual code of it working in the website itself, because we're quite proud of it. So let me just get that set up. But if you guys are interested in this project at all, just take a picture of this slide, because this has pretty much everything that's important on there. We do all of our development on Discord. We don't have a bug tracker at all. We do everything in live chat, because we think that if there's a bug, it needs to be handled immediately and shouldn't be just shunted off somewhere. So we do it that way, and all of our code is open source. So. So this is the main web page right now of basically what people see when they see the retirement screen. So right here you have the buy, which is you're buying new P3C. And what you can do is you can see the current price. So the current price for a P3C token is 0.0097 ETC. And that's 14 cents. So if I were to put in 2 ETC right now, I would get 202 P3C in return. And if I were to sell, so this is the sell price, which takes into consideration the 10% liquidation penalty, because every time you buy and sell, there's a penalty. So if I were to sell P3C right now, and I were to sell, let's say, 100 of them, I would get back 0.8 ETC in return. And I can do this at any time. The question is whether or not this price is greater or lower than what I put in. So if I'm a very short-term player, you guys can tell right here, the spread between those is actually pretty high. It's 3 cents. So if I were to buy 100 ETC, 100 P3C right now and then sell them immediately, I would lose money. And that's because the system prioritizes you keeping in your money as long as possible. It's not for quick flips. It's for long-term holding. And then, so this is the important part, which is that you can see my tokens that I hold right now. So this is 300 tokens. You can see the current size of my retirement, which is 34 US dollars. And then this is the most important thing, which is you have your dividends right here, which is this is the money that I've sort of accrued in the past. This has been about a week from people entering and leaving and playing around with it. So I've made $1 from people basically buying, selling, transferring, and the dividends from the advertising. And then this is the advertisement right here. So I'll get into that. But I can choose right now. So I can take that 0.0, so I have 0.09 ETC right now, and this is my Saturn wallet. So I want you guys to take a look right now. I have 1.6 ETC in my account, 1.666. That's a funny number. And I'm going to withdraw it right here. And I'm going to submit this. So I'm taking this $1.30 and I'm taking it out right now. And this is basically like, imagine I'm in my 50s and I've had my P3C account for about 50 years and I'm not quite ready to reinvest it to get interested in taking my red. So I want you guys, that's currently being mined. So this is pending. For those of you guys that are Ethereum Classic, you don't have access to Etherscan. You use a different website, which is called Gas Tracker, which is a kind of Etherscan type website. It's a block explorer. Waiting for a confirmation. That'll come through. But the beauty of it is that in terms of trust, Imagine, for example, how can you audit Social Security, or how can you audit your pension fund, or how can you audit your insurance company? You can't. But with P3C, you can see exactly how people have interacted with it globally over time. And this is pretty amazing. These are people putting money in, taking money out. This is just interactions with the economy. And it's all stored on the blockchain in the same way that things are with like Bitcoin, for example. And that goes a long way towards building that sense of trust. So if we go back to our wallet, it went up 1.75 right there. And that was withdrawing our dividends. So this system is very thoroughly tested, and it works. So now to kind of get into how are we generating revenue right now. So right now, I can choose to buy this advertisement. And that's what I'm going to do. So I can go to our sponsorship page, and I can say right now, I want to upload a picture for this meetup. I want to do greetings from Bulgaria. And I want to do learn more. And I want to put, let's say, google.bg. So this is an economy that I really haven't gone into, but it's how you purchase the sponsorship. What happens is when that sponsorship is purchased, there's a timer that starts. And for the first 24 hours, the price to purchase that sponsorship for another person is 5 times what the original person paid. And when you pay your amount, 50% goes to the original person and 50% goes to the P3C community. So it allows you to speculate on advertisements. And now I can show you right now, I'm going to purchase this right now for 0.75 BTC. That's $10. And that's being mined right now. And then this is sort of the big thing right now, which is, so this web page right here, sponsor.p3c.io, this is and this is technical stuff, so for those of you that are not as technical, you may not kind of see why this is important. This does not require any connection to the Ethereum blockchain. This advertisement, a node pulls the advertisement out and then serves it on an HTTP endpoint. So you can serve this advertisement in an iframe or anything like that. You can theoretically have the P3C sponsorship showing up on thousands of devices without any of them having to be connected to the blockchain, on a billboard, in an airport, etc. So let's see if that transaction went through. And now you see it right here, greetings from Bulgaria. And we can go to the web page. And we can see right here that our sponsorship has changed. And then we can go into the economy right here and take a look at where did the money go. And we can see that 0.375, so that's half of the previous Ether, was paid to the previous owner, which was me, because I bought the Bitcoin one. And then the 0.375 was given to this contract right here. And this contract right here is dividends for P3C. So basically any money that hits this contract, we can distribute proportionally to the P3C community. So when I'm saying that we want to form partnerships with developers, literally just send money to that address, we take care of distributing it, and then we're done. And the beauty of it as well is that these advertisements aren't just on the webpage, they advertise to communities as well. And I said that our community is 200 members, so you can go to sponsorships, and you can see right here that it showed up. So, and that all happened automatically. That's really the big idea, and right now, in terms of generating interest for P3 advertising model, we're going to be trying to create ways to embed advertisements in multiple multiple websites, and all the that's kind of what we're doing. But the beauty of P3C is that it's a global project. So, however you want to leverage the community, however you want to deliver dividends, the goal of creating planetary prosperity, you can do it anyway. We're just trying to do it through advertisements right now, but it doesn't have to be the case. So that's it in terms of technical demonstration. And then the last part is that you can see the code that is for the actual core contract right here. And it's confirmed on the blockchain. So this is a P3D Classic. and it's 700 lines. But this is the engine of how P3C works. And I don't want to get into the mathematics because it's very difficult, but this is the core function right here that calculates the cell value. It's called tokens to Ethereum. And we think that these 20 lines of code right here, they're very complicated. These 20 lines of code can absolutely change the world because of how it incentivizes participation in things. So that's really the magic of the project right here, and we just wanted to demonstrate that it works as well. So that's it for my talk, finally.
Okay, there are beers outside, you can network, chat, and talk stuff if you want.
Yeah. Did anyone have any questions, by the way? Yeah, there was
Sure, I have one question.
Yeah.
Do you really, how do you decide, I mean, how is the price variation? I don't know how to frame my question, but I'm sure.
So the way that the buy price is decided is this, is that the smart contract has a variable at all times, which is buy price. And every time a token is purchased, an entire token is bought, that buy price is incremented by 0.00001 ETC. So the first token that was bought was 0.001 ETC. The second token that was bought, the price is now 0.0002 ETC. The third token, 0.003. And then as more tokens have been bought, the price has gone up. Now that price is denominated in Ethereum Classic. And the way that exchanges work is that Ethereum Classic bounces between $10, $13, $14. So it's always going up and down in that range. But the contract has no knowledge of USD value for any of this stuff. It just says, this is how much Ethereum Classic I'm going to give, this is how much I'm going to pay out.
So it's always connected to the price of Ethereum Classic.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Plus the increase that is happening whenever someone buys or someone sells.
Yeah, so we think that it'll actually be very interesting because if this project were to take off and actually become very used, that would probably increase the price of Ethereum Classic itself. So not only would people be gaining the value of their tokens going up, but they would also be increasing the dollar value because Ethereum Classic would be worth more dollars or levs or whatever currency you want. Yeah.
So is there a finite amount of P3C? I don't know what's the name of your token.
Yes, there is a finite amount, and that is solely because Ethereum Classic is capped at 210 million. So if every Ethereum Classic were to be put into the contract, no more P3C could be created.
So what's the hard cap? There's no hard cap.
The hard cap, I haven't calculated the hard cap of 200. Actually, let me see if I can do it right now.
Changes.
So if we were to spend 210, this is the hard cap, 193,535.88. So, yeah, so get it now. Yeah. Yes.
In the beginning of the presentation, you said something like that the hard currencies
Yeah.
does not have any inflation. Is that right? Did you say
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not saying that you're wrong.
Uh-huh.
I'm just thinking, why do you think like this?
Well, so with gold, for example, gold's considered a hard currency, but technically there could be inflation because we could find, let's say, a gold mine in the ground that has like millions of tons of gold in it, and it makes everyone's gold worthless. Bitcoin, however, has only 21 million. It is capped. There can never be more than 21 million Bitcoin. Otherwise, it wouldn't be Bitcoin. So in the same way that has sort of solved the inflation problem, P3C is sort of frozen in a particular amount. Now, I do not, and this is something that I'm still thinking about, I do not like the hard cap on the number of Ethereum Classic. I don't like that. I used Ethereum Classic because I like the immutability. I like the fact that it never was changed, and that's very important to me. But I do not like the fact that they decided to make 210 million of them. So I do not know over time if P3C were to get big enough that like most people using Ethereum Classic are using it because of P3C, and that we as P3C holders would say, look, we don't like Ethereum Classic with this cap. It's bad for the economics of the project. It's unfair for people 500 years from now that there's only a certain amount of Ethereum Classic out there. Maybe we can change it. So I'm still sort of up in the air about that myself. Yeah.
How do you plan on obfuscating people's wallets or the amounts of people's wallets?
Currently, we are not. It's like a ERC20 token, so anybody can see how much you own. But in the future, we want to put a ZK Snark technology in front of it. So I don't know if you guys have heard about Barry Whitehat and the project Miximus. He's created a mixer for ERC20s. Still very theoretical, but we think in 1 to 2 years, it will be possible to obfuscate that information.
Can you share with us what kind of challenge maybe you encountered during, theoretically, you're also executing the code because it comes for like technical part, maybe?
Well, I would say that the most difficult problem that we've had is that a lot of the times when you explain the idea to people, the first thing that people think is that, oh, this is just a scheme to take our money. It's like a Ponzi scheme where we're just going to collect your money in this contract and then take it out, and then you'll be left with nothing. But what we say to that is that this contract cannot be changed. This contract is deployed on the blockchain, and there is no way to change any of its settings. It's done. There's absolutely nothing that we can do. And that's something that once people understand that it's out of the control of a human being that can just change it around, then they start being like, oh, this could be something bigger than we thought. In terms of code, I would say the hardest part is that I knew nothing about Ethereum Classic 3 months ago. Like, I didn't know how it worked at all. And then over the past month, I've been learning. I've found bugs in sort of things that worked on Ethereum but didn't work on Ethereum Classic. I've worked with the developers directly. They have an issue with some of their miners. I don't know how familiar you guys are with the mining process, but with Ethereum, you can choose to not mine any transactions and just get the block reward, and that's technically more profitable in some cases because you don't have to worry about potentially getting beaten to that block reward and becoming an uncle. And on the Ethereum Classic blockchain, because there are so few transactions, lots of miners do that technique. So there are cases on Ethereum Classic where you'll get 10 blocks and nobody mined a transaction on them because it's more profitable for them not to. So I needed to talk with the miners directly and say, look guys, if you want people to use this thing, you have to mine the transactions that people are putting in. You can't just collect the rewards all the time. And they actually, and I've been amazed, they've been super, super helpful. So like I brought up bugs and issues and they solve it immediately for me. And I'm in contact with their dev team. So that was a challenge, technically.
So you could recommend that we try to develop on Ethereum Classic?
I would say give it a shot. It's lower fees, way lower fees. And I mean, I'll be honest, there's no shit coins on it yet. So that means you don't have to worry about your DApp having to, be slowed down or charge $6 or $10 to do something. These blocks are practically empty and ready for you to use. So you can have like huge transactions for like literally a penny in terms of price to pay for them. And it's just as good as Ethereum. So I would give it a shot. You can download a Saturn wallet, which is like their fork of MetaMask. Yeah.
Because it's just the issue with the Ponzi scheme. If we just use one user of B3C.
Yeah.
So when the guy goes in,
Mhm.
maybe 10% of their amount denominated in US dollars, I assume.
Yeah.
We distribute to the fund,
Mhm.
and then when they come out, another 10% will be taken out.
Yeah.
Therefore, those 20%, even with just one user, will stay in the fund.
Absolutely.
That's fine. So basically, it doesn't. I'm not saying that it won't solve the problem in the long term, but it doesn't generally solve the problem with a pension fund where if you have a demographic where you have an aging population and you don't have enough producers, then that's the reason why the fund goes down, because you're paid to the price, and the price increase against the dollar for people to actually have a return on their fund, because you immediately take out from the user 20%.
So I guess the big thing that I would say in response to that, and we can talk more about like the specific mathematics, because I kind of see what you're saying, and that might take a long answer.
Oh,
But
yeah.
just to say is that P3C is not magic. It can't make money out of nothing. It can't generate value out of thin air. It's just a way for the community to store value at the beginning and to withdraw a specific number of that value in the end. Whether or not the world value, if the world valued ETC at 1 penny and you bought into P3C when it was like $15 or $20, yeah, your investment would be gone. But that's the same problem that Bitcoin has. In fact, I would say that Bitcoin is potentially a worse store of value than P3C, because what happens if the rest of the world, if you went to the market and no one said that they would be willing to buy your Bitcoin from you, you'd be left with $0. But with Ethereum Classic, for example, you know that mathematically the contract will always give you back Ethereum Classic, and Ethereum Classic has utility other than just storage of value. So there is another element to it that I think could push it to another level. Yeah, but we can talk more about this specific mathematical concern later. Yeah. Well, I think that's it for questions. I left my card right here. Please, if anyone is sort of like in the technical community or has questions or just wants to chat a little bit more about it, please take my card, reach out to me. I'm in New York. Currently, we're raising funding. We had somebody put in $25,000. We're going to angels. So we have cash that we're willing to pay out in the form of grants to people. So if you have an idea for a decentralized application and you can plug that decentralized application into P3C somehow and you want to launch it, we'll just give you money to do that because we just want to build a community right now. And it's also just a super cool community of people as well. So if any of you guys are interested in that, please take my card and definitely let's keep in touch. So thank you guys so much.
Okay. You could just get a beer.
Second remark.